What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to StockWatch, our second podcast. And with me again, obviously, is my boy Will. Will, what's going on, brother? How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm drinking a nice cold LaCroix, and coconut flavor. You'd love to see it.
Oh my god! And I got my fancy dancy cup of water right over here.
Cheers.
Yeah, man. So, how's it been? How's it been since we last saw each other?
It's been good. I just lied to a random Instagram page, and lied to
What
a
did-
school. Like, you know those pages where it's like honoring seniors, and they're like, "Oh, this senior's going to this school." I sent in a random picture of my friend. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to Harvard."
I don't. I guess to mess with them or just having a good time, confuse them, throw smoke. Absolutely.
I don't even go to the school, so
You're evil, Will. You're absolutely evil.
Ah.
Yeah, I've been good. I got my last few projects that I'm finishing up, last few assignments, and then it's finals week next week. But the whole year's kind of like, there's two types of ends to the year. It's either winds down slowly and it just falls off, or it grinds to a stop. And I feel like I'm kind of grinding to a stop. With this, it's.
I have my first exam tomorrow morning.
Good luck with that, dude. Good luck with that. Hopefully this gives you good energy, good feelings for that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. So, Survivor. Yeah, that's why we're here. So, episode 9, 10, 9?
9.
9? Episode 9. Episode 9 released on Wednesday, and I gotta say, I personally enjoyed the episode, which is, maybe a little bit of a hot topic because some people aren't enjoying every New Era episode. Maybe they don't enjoy any at all. But I don't know. I feel like the past two episodes have been pretty good, and this season, beyond the Matt vote out episode 7, it's been pretty good. It's been going in a good direction.
I feel like every season, the Survivor fans are like, "Oh my God, Survivor's finally good again." Like this, I'm like, can we just appreciate the new era for being a good era of? It's not the best. I prefer, seasons 16 through 20, like everyone else. But like modern Survivor is pretty good. There's a lot of good episodes. There's a lot of bad episodes. But that's the problem. I feel like it's very risky. Like they try to do a lot of things.
Right.
And so because of that, some things are going to fail. Like the Matt vote out, right? But at least they tried something. And even though that episode sucked and everyone thought the season was ruined, the last two episodes, I've said this before, felt very old, like just normal Survivor. We had a whole idol scramble, we had a challenge, we had the negotiations, kind of stupid, but not game breaking. But yet, no, like Survivor's back.
Absolutely. I mean, we're nowhere near the absolute dark ages of 21 to 24.
I like 21.
You're probably in the minority.
Great season.
But we're definitely not near the golden ages. We're not near 16 to 20 for sure. But I think the biggest thing Survivor and, the show as a whole, all the executive producers, everyone's done is adaptation. 41, Do or Die, Hourglass Twist, just some of the worst twists to ever be in Survivor. No debate. They sucked. But with each season, they've learned. And we're not there yet. I don't think we're 100% back to really what it should be with that whole new era spin. But, the idol cage now, no Do or Die.
Oh, thank God.
No Hourglass. I think we're in a good spot, and I think we're going the right way, which I think is the good thing.
Absolutely. And, that's the thing. It's like But the thing is, it's like, how much do we blame the twist from season 41? Because season 42 is, so far still the highest ranked season of the new era, excluding 44. I think 44 is going to be overtaking that. But
Probably.
it was the exact same season as 41, right? And so, really, if you ask me, season 41 was a good season of Survivor. And fans are just butthurt and bitter that Xander lost. Neither here nor there.
I like season 41. I think it's right in the middle. I don't think it's definitely not close to my favorites, but it's definitely not a horrible season. You take some of the you take a lot of those players on that season and you put them in a season like 44 that has, a little bit more of normal Survivor kind of laid in with it.
Yep.
You got a good season. You got a good season of Survivor, and I think it would really work out. It's just, we've been kind of living and learning. I think we're due for a returnee season really, really soon with a lot of these players from the new era, but also people from, from even 35, from
35 yeah,
35 to 39, maybe not 39, maybe not a lot of them, but
Janet, absolutely.
Janet for sure. But you got people like Angelina. You got people like Christian. Dominic should come back. You have people like Chrissy who should come back. You have all these great people who I'm fearful will not come back because of this move to the new era and the focus on the new era and then jumping way back, maybe into the 20s or the early 30s to get players. I'm scared that we're leaving the later 30s alone. But I think we need that returnee season just every little while just so we can kind of reinforce it. Plus, I want to see how some of these players who were dealt with these horrible game-breaking twists actually play in a more cohesive, stronger season like 44. Like imagine if Ricard, imagine if Marianne, imagine if like all of these great players from the new era, imagine if they go and jump into 44 and it's it's a lot better. Like that's I think what we need.
Yeah. And I think I do agree. It's like I feel like they're evolving. And something I do appreciate, it's something I think we will appreciate once the Survivor producers have their footing, is that we will see the game evolve. And not just the game, but the producers evolve in real time, right? Learning of what went wrong, removing the hourglass and do or die twists, and, even like, and maybe modifying some other twists like shot in the dark. We will see that in real time. And I think it's hard for us to appreciate that now because, we're still stumbling through and we're still, trying to figure out what's going on. But I have high hopes for Survivor, always will.
I do. I think it's a bunch of hills and valleys with Survivor, and I think that is in terms of eras, in terms of seasons, and in terms of episodes. I thought this episode was pretty darn good. It felt like old Survivor with the idle scrambling. Really enjoyed the challenge. Endurance is very, very common now, and it can be very drawn out. But this challenge actually seemed pretty good. Negotiation aside, that still kind of iffy on that idea of a forced negotiation for rice or whatever. It's it's basically like a oh god, it's like your teacher is giving you extra credit. Yeah. But it's really like a mandatory point you have to fill out or you don't get that point on the exam. So it's basically like, hey, this is a great idea. You should do this. You don't have to, but you have to.
I think it'd be a lot better if they just, the players have to ask for it and the penalty is a lot higher because 4 people sitting out of a challenge is really, it's just bland.
It is.
It's not anything that's like, oh, I think the payoff tonight was good. It was cool seeing, a player sit out of a challenge and then get voted out.
Right.
That only happened one other time. I'll give you $5 if you can tell me when it was.
Oh, okay. Is it a recent kind of season?
Nope.
No. Don't know.
Philip Shepard, Caramoan.
Philip Shepard. Oh, I would have never gotten that. I was thinking coach in a challenge. I would have never gotten that.
And basically, he has a fear of swimming in water, and it was like a water challenge, and it wasn't like you can sit out. It was more of a hey, you spoke up, and Probst was mad at him for whatever reason, and I'm like, dude, just let the dog sit out.
Old Probst was wild, man.
Survivor,
yes. Really, like, just some like few kind of. The biggest thing I enjoyed personally about this episode is Franny, honestly, and she's quickly become one of my favorites and probably a crowd favorite as well. She's really been killing it in the challenge. Like, you could see her teeth like gritting. Like she wanted to win that for sure. And you absolutely want to see that out of absolutely everybody on Survivor. And Franny's been playing a good game physically. But she also pointed out, she was the only person to do this, that the Tika 3 are kind of running the show. And one of them should probably go. She's the only person to mention that. Everyone else brushed it off and eventually, didn't really amount to anything. But Brandy was the one to point it out. And so we'll get into this later when we actually talk about, Franny's StockWatch rating. But it's a really telling sign. And I think, what we talked about last week, the idea of the Tika 3 kind of being on the edge. Now, I think it's even more pertinent, and it's going to come to the surface even more with every episode kind of rolling out.
Yep. So you want to go talk through the stocks?
Sure. Not a lot of stocks are changing this week, but there are some interesting shifts, and I think it's going to kind of align more with Will's point of view. But, we had a little conversation pre-show, and we kind of talked about, kind of thoughts about everyone.
Yep.
There could be some interesting discussion with some of these picks. So we're going to go alphabetically like we've done, and we're going to start with Carolyn. Carolyn, I moved her to number 2. Her episode this week was fan-flippin-tastic. Super good. Really, really, really strong. Personal moment. I think she had a whole commercial-to-commercial segment about, like, centered around her.
Mm-hmm.
She stood on that rock, that symbolic pose or whatever, and she's playing an actually pretty strong social game. And so seeing that 100% made me bump her up to number 2, because I was like, all right, Carolyn's good. I just don't know. I'm worried about the future. I'm worried about her. Once it cracks, it cracks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm less worried now, but I'm still worried about that. It's just a lot less now. I feel like she's really kind of come into her own, and she's strong, and I think she's still probably the number 2 target on Tika after Jam Jam and before Carson, but definitely she's playing a strong enough social game to kind of avoid that target. The thing I want to point out with Carolyn is that she did not get her way, I believe. Yeah, she did not get her way. She did not want Kane to go home. I'm pretty sure she wanted one of the Sokas, or I think it was Jamie.
I can't remember.
Okay.
I don't think, was it ever explicitly said, or was it just her questioning why Kane was going?
Yeah, I think it was more that. If someone wants to correct us, please, absolutely. Yeah. But the point of it all, Carolyn did not get her way. And I think that's interesting, because now what we could start to see is, since the Tika 3 have been so tight and have been so uniform together, we're going to see them all try to bob up a little bit and get who they want out of the game. because Jam Jam was the one who wanted Kane out, and Kane went home this week. Carolyn did not want that. That's a little power struggle win for Jam Jam and a little loss for Carolyn. So I'm worried that these losses, if they continue to build, they build up more and more and more and more. And she's close to the end of the game, and she's with one of those Tika 3 near the end, and she doesn't have any concrete moves to separate herself. So overall, I think Carolyn's done pretty well, but I still see a little bit of an issue, and so I'm not gonna put her a number one because of that.
So Carolyn is a weird person for me to rank because on one hand, after this episode, I really want her to be number one because we did get a lot of personal stuff. We have someone like Franny saying how much he loved Carolyn and how positive Carolyn was, and we got that. But conversely, my fear is that Carolyn's storyline will be that no one listens to her, right? Until it's too late, because that's something I feel like she remarks upon every episode is how she's so underestimated. And I don't if she sits next to someone like Jam Jam in Final Tribal Council, Jam Jam is going to beat Carolyn, which sucks because I think Carolyn has been doing a better job at staying under the radar and maybe even playing a better game. And so I think second is I think Carolyn should have been second this whole time. But there is also reason for her to be number one. And I think too is because even though Jam Jam storyline is I vote out everyone who wrote down my name, only one person has wrote Carolyn's name down. And that was Helen. So I agree, though. Number two, but there is an argument for number one, even though I'm the biggest Jam Jam fan.
There's absolutely an argument for number one for Carolyn, and I think those strengths right now are outweighing the weaknesses. I'm just fearful of the future with her. So we're going to have to see how maybe that idea of no one really listening to Carolyn kind of plays out in the future, because if that becomes a plot element, if that becomes a story element next episode, it's going to be a very worrying sign for Carolyn, because that could potentially mean if no one's listening to her, but she's staying under the radar, she goes to the end, but she doesn't get any recognition.
Exactly. But the storyline could also be at the end where she snipes like Jam Jam and takes power, and then all of a sudden, like, no one listened to her, and she was able to slip through the cracks and slide her way to the end. That is also very possible for a Carolyn storyline, because I think I don't think, even though I said it earlier, I don't think Carolyn is losing the game. I think she's too prominent of a person. We have too much personal information. I think she's either winning the game or getting fourth or sixth, but not sixth.
Fair enough. I think the kind of the slogan for Carolyn right now is that good old Hercules movie song. It's either 0 to hero from No One Listened to Me to I Dominated, or hero to zero, where I've been really under the radar and really social, but no one listened to me.
Yep.
So, moving on to Carson. I'm so sad. He's down. He might be out. Carson, on paper, look at the educator. He had a good episode, but I can't deny two things. Number one, Will's theory about Carson, about being a game bot and starting to get a little too game body, is absolutely on point. I think it's getting to the point where it's a little too much, and I think that's going to start to weigh him down. But number two, and I kind of want to hear your feedback on this, Will, is I think he's getting a little too cocky. I think there's a little bit of inlaid arrogance in the way he's starting to play the game, because he's treating them like puppets, but you wouldn't expect that out of a winner unless they were a clear-cut villain. And we've been shown that Carson's is not a villainous person. He's a somewhat heroic person, or at least a heroic kind of strategist. He's not a villain. He wouldn't basically treat people as puppets. But we saw with Kane this episode, which they showed a scene of them having or building a relationship on or earlier on in the season, fell to the wayside. Even when I was rewatching the Tribal today, even when Kane was getting votes, Carson smiles. He goes, like, I think, especially with the next time on Survivor, the sneak peek where he's talking to Jamie and saying, oh, time to do damage control. Jamie 100% trusts me. She's totally in my corner. I'm fearful that there's a little bit of arrogance starting to pop up in Carson, that he can kind of 100% have the reins on anybody.
Yep.
And it's going to start to get negative. And he's going to be a little bit more villainous. And then he's going to start to go down. But I just think we're starting to see Carson kind of become more of a perfect on paper, imperfect on the screen kind of edit for him.
Hey, I just want to say I've been saying this since episode 2, and I'm so glad that my crackpot theory is paying off, because I agree completely. I think the thing is that I say this all the time, right? Carson knows Survivor inside and out, and he loves the game, and he's great. He's a cool guy.
Absolutely.
Never met him, probably won't, but cool. I imagine he's a cool guy in real life.
100%.
But part of knowing how to play Survivor is knowing just how to play people and how to work people and how to build connections. Because I think in Carson's mind, and I said this too back in episode like 2 or 3 with how he did damage control with Sarah, where I feel like in Carson's mind, his damage control is just a conversation where he's able to explain everything away. And I think that'll catch up with him. And I honestly think that next episode, and I'll get into more detail with Danny too, I think it's either him or Danny going. And I think he's been playing a good game, but he's not winning the game. And
right.
I that is something I'll stick by. Now, unless Jam and Carolyn both get medically evacuated and Franny loses and whatnot. But again, it's like the fact that he had no remorse, like he showed no remorse for getting Kane out. Like, I don't think Carson could have done anything to save Kane, but at least have the humility and, looked disappointed, looked upset with your closest friend going out, because just smiling, because that then looks bad to Brandon and Matt, because they're seeing, Kane's best friend, smiling and smirking when Kane's going. And that's going to get relayed back to Kane. And then Kane, someone who you would think would be pro Carson and jury is now going to be anti Carson or, questioning that. So
what we've seen in these past 3 seasons, I definitely know 41 was Shan, and then 42 was High. I believe 43 was Noelle, and she wasn't as big as the previous 2. But what we've seen with this 8th place round coming up, big players go home. The players that have been pretty prominent in game are getting sent out. Now, I don't know if that is going to be the same this season. You can't really predict that unless it's Final 8 syndrome. But what we've seen is these big players taken out. And so I do see a little bit of validity to your point that it could be Carson or Danny, because objectively, they have been the biggest players. Danny's made the flashier moves, and Carson has been playing everybody. They've been playing objectively the best games right now. And so we could see one of them go home. But I think with Carson, and I think this is going to get interesting, is that all of this is going to catch up with him. But I'm interested to see if he actually survives these votes. I don't think he goes next time. And here's why. I think if he gets votes, he's only going to get a few, but not enough. because he still has Jam Jam and Carolyn supporting him. And I'm sure he'll be able to pull in the numbers. But I do agree with you that Carson is absolutely, positively in the hot seat. And, that the game bot, the rise of the arrogance a little bit, I think all of that is starting to spell DOOM for Carson. And I think it's going to start to run him down and out.
I think honestly, it depends with what Ratu wants, and because there's a lot of Soka members, there's still 3 Soka. Jamie's technically in my mind a Soka.
Yeah,
I don't know. Jamie's weird, but there's still 3 Soka and 2 Ratu. They could easily team up and vote out Carson, right?
Mhm.
Or Soka falls apart and someone like Danny goes. And I'll tell you more about Danny later. But I like Carson, cool guy. I've met him once in the grocery store and he made fun of me. But he's not he's not winning the game. I think that's how the copy pasta went. I can't remember.
I think we can bookmark that. All right, we're gonna move to Danny next. With Danny, the story is kind of largely the same as last week, but I do kind of want to point out 2 things that I kind of noticed and kept track of in the episode. He was not the target for the Ratus because they were afraid he had an idol. And so it's an interesting dilemma. When you get on Survivor and you get kind of later into the game, everyone just kind of looks for idols openly, pretty much. Like it's an open search and no one's ashamed of it. Danny has challenged that because he is openly looked a lot earlier than most of the modern Survivor seasons, New Era and some of the 30s. He has been a relentless searcher for idols, and I think it's a double-edged sword because if he didn't have strong enough loyalties or he didn't have that fear factor built in with other people, Danny would absolutely be the number 1 target in the game, and he would go home unanimously if he did not have the idol or win the challenge. But the thing that's working for Danny, and I think why he wasn't the target, which he wasn't, is because he has that fear factor built in because he searches all the time and he made that big idol play. And yeah, I mean, he has really worked that double-edged sword to his advantage. And I think if it's an intentional strategy, it's very unique, and I think it's very genius. If it's not, Danny's very, very lucky, in my opinion. So that's number 1. Number 2, we've seen this in this challenge, and we saw this in, I think it was actually the previous challenge, or the challenge where, what was it? Who won the challenge? Oh, Lauren. We saw it with Lauren. We saw it with Lauren Denny. When he loses, he gets mad. Like there is vehement rage, and it's rage where he cuts off Yam Yam, says, "I don't want to talk for a minute." He yells curse words. Yeah. You don't really want to show that to people on Survivor because they're going to get the impression that you're being maybe a little disingenuous and you are not being as truly yourself. Because if you're really like your real raw emotional self comes out, especially after those endurance challenges. And so when people are looking at Danny and saying, "Hey, you did a good job," and then he's screaming and he's cursing and he's saying, "Fuck off, I don't want to talk to you," like that's the emotional raw Danny. And I think that can very easily come back to bite him and will kind of supersede the idea that this idol fear is protecting him. I think that, he's come close and he's obviously very good at these challenges, but I think a lot of people are starting to notice that, and we are noticing too. Like, they are not hiding it from us. If they just showed Franny celebrating and the other tribe celebrating or Jeff or whatever, would have been fine. They wouldn't show like Danny being mad or anything.
Yeah.
But they intentionally show Danny being mad and Danny being upset with himself. And I think that is a key thing about Danny, and I think it's going to play out a lot more frequently in these next few episodes.
Yeah, so that's a whole monologue there, Abraham Lincoln. But I will say that I feel like with Survivor, finding an idol, weirdly enough, is kind of a skill, right?
Yeah.
Like we see it time and time again where a lot of the players who find a lot of idols, like they find multiple idols, right? And I want to say that Danny has that skill, but at the same time, not really. Like like we've seen him try and then he failed. We see him push himself every challenge, and has he ever won individual immunity? No. And so I think that's part of Danny's storyline where I think he had a lot of early success. He was able to build bonds, and that's why he's still afloat today. But, I feel like he peaked with the idol play on Franny, and I think everything before and after is going to end in him missing the mark, just barely. And that's not to say anything bad about Danny, because I think he is a good player.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he's a winner. And I don't think, again, we're seeing him get upset. We're seeing him try to find these idols, and someone like Heidi finds it, And I feel like him using the idol on Franny was more, obviously it's more of a success for Franny because she's still in the game, but I feel like it's not as successful for Danny as I think he anticipated it would be. And I think Franny is seeing that, because we see Franny talk about, hey, we should vote out Atika, and Danny's like, nah, we got to do Kane. And for whatever reason, they called Kane a challenge threat. In what world is Kane? Kane, he's a solid guy. He looks like he's able to win a challenge, maybe. But, Franny's right there, and Franny's been killing it in challenges.
To be fair, out of the 3 Raw 2 that were left in the game, probably the biggest challenge threat out of those 3. But generally,
Lauren won a challenge. Lauren won more challenges than Kane.
Fair enough. I don't know. I think out of Carson and Danny, I think Danny has the highest chance to go next episode. But I also think with Danny, we'll see him go a little bit farther in the game. I want to say a few more rounds, and I think that his edit's not going to really build in complexity or build in tone or anything. He's not going to start to really be great. He's going to be kind of riding this high that he supposedly is on, or riding his game as is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just a matter of, okay, he's good at challenges. He's good at the intangibles of Survivor, because the tangibles are the social game, the conversations you have, the moves you pull. The intangibles are how many idols you find, how many challenges you win, how many blindsides that were you a part of, stuff like that, So yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have any hope that Danny would win, but he might have one last hurrah. He might make a cool move, but I think honestly, of the Sokas, I think he's in dire straits. I think he goes first of the 3 Soka.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that for sure. Okay, we are moving to the next Soka, Franny. Miss Franny. Start to become probably one of the fan favorites of the season. Definitely, I think top 3 with Carolyn and Jam Jam, in my opinion. Franny's definitely kind of crowned into the top 3. The whole fear with Franny was once Matt was gone, she was done. She would have no story. She would have no game. But we've really started to see Franny kind of come into her own a little bit. She's been beasting these challenges. And as we mentioned earlier, she pointed out the 3 Tikas as the real target, the real people we should go for. That's really good. And although Franny didn't get her way this episode, I'm willing to let it slide for now. I think that Franny has really been building on herself. And I think that it's just really cool to see someone who is just fighting hard like that, got idled, won 2 challenges, just a really positive person and player. I think it's really, really, really cool to see. Do I think she's going to win? Unfortunately, no. I don't think so. As much as I enjoy Franny and I think she's a great presence and a pretty good player, I don't see it. And I think you're right. I think she does go pretty late in the game, but gets voted out for being a threat. I personally think 6th, 5th, like that kind of range.
Yeah, I think 5th.
Yeah, I think she plays a great game, but I just think she is too big of a threat. And I think we've seen this positive image of Franny becoming kind of a beast in these challenges and in the game in general. I just think it's the standard, hey, I'm getting real strong, but sorry, you're done. Get dropped.
And so I think if not Carolyn or Jam Jam, I think Franny. But the problem is, it's like, at what point do we narrow the possible contenders, like true contenders left, to less people, right? Because I know last week we said there was 4 main contenders, right? And we disagreed a little bit on who's in that 4, but at what point do we go from 4 to 3? At what point do we go from 3 to 2? And then at what point are we sitting at the final 5 going, hey, there's only one possible winner, right? And so I think Franny. The problem with Franny, she would be a fan favorite if it wasn't for the genius that is Jam Jam and Carolyn.
Absolutely.
Like, if they weren't in the cast, Franny would be a fan favorite because she made me like a showmance. I don't even like showmances, and I love Franny. Like, she's so cool. But yeah. And then now we have the other piece.
Yeah.
Next 3.
Yeah, I mean, look, just to kind of talk about your point about those contenders, they obviously whittled down as this season goes on. We said there was 4, and it was debatable about which 4 were kind of in the works. The 3 right now, it's going to be Jam Jam and Carolyn as 2 of them for sure.
Yep.
The 3rd is debatable. We've basically kind of ruled Carson out at this point, even though it's, he's a great player. We think we rule him out.
It's either Franny or Heidi.
It's Franny or Heidi.
Speaking of Heidi,
look at that. Good transition. Yeah. Heidi. I feel so bad about Heidi because, okay, first of all, you never want to say you feel so bad about someone when they find an idol in an episode. That's supposed to be a good thing, right? You find an idol, great. Your game is lifted. You are up 100%. Yeah, about that. We mentioned last episode, our first podcast episode, that Heidi needs to build. If Heidi builds, if Heidi continues to get stronger, it's going to be really, really good for her, and it's going to be a really, really good sign. Unfortunately, while she did find the idol, and I was having high hopes, like literally during the episode, even though Will wasn't watching, I said we made a good call on our Heidi stock.
Yep.
I now retract that statement because she's in the same boat. It's this great positive of, hey, I did this great thing in Survivor, and this great negative of, okay, I still don't know what's going on in the future with Heidi. And I think last episode, I was like, all right, we got to know now. We got to know now, where's Heidi?
Yeah.
Is there a future? What does she want? We didn't get that, especially with an idol. A lot of winners that we've seen. I'm going to take an example from Wendell from Ghost Island. When he finds the idol in the when he's on the Green Tribe after that second swap, he talks about what he wants to do with it. And while it's not much, it's something. He talks about a goal with it. Heidi's just like, it's great to have this. There's no goal. There's no means to an end. And I think that's the tragic flaw of Heidi, and that's why I think my 3 contenders are obviously Jam, and Carolyn, and Franny. I think I can rule Heidi out, but I still have her hovering right at this range just because I'm not comfortable with moving her down just yet.
So here's the thing with Heidi. I feel like I wanted to say, like, I feel like my gut is saying I should agree with you, right? Because I don't think she's winning.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that is a little too narrow focused on just this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because don't forget, Sokka is a core 3. She has an idol. And I feel like, honestly, we could be looking at Carson getting idled out. Hear me out. I feel like Ratu, it makes sense for people to try to target Dan. I feel like Danny is the biggest, like, most vocal threat, right? I feel like Franny is easygoing enough, and she might win the challenge, right? And I feel like Danny would be the second, threat. And, who's to say that, most people would be voting for Danny, and then Heidi would use the idol on Danny and idle out Carson, the biggest physical, strategic, social threat from the Tika, because Franny is getting vocal about wanting a Tika out.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I don't know if that will happen. I don't think so. But, I think that idol, I don't know. I feel like Heidi's game is like, she's just like a shark, right? Laying low, coming out only when there's blood. And I think I'd place around 4th of the overall position. I think below Franny, but I think of the Sokkas, she'd between Franny and Danny in like gameplay.
I like that. I think to agree with your point. I'm not saying I agree with your point. I do think that she is probably heading towards losing at the end, in my opinion. I think to agree with your point that, she could be a great player and maybe she does get 4th or something like that. I think her comment in the very first episode about don't underestimate me, I think that's going to come into play. If your point is correct and if she starts to really come into her own by making this big idol play next episode and then kind of building off of that, don't underestimate Heidi is going to become one of the top themes, and we're going to be talking about it on this very show.
Yep.
So, I think you have a good point there.
But
now, sorry, go ahead.
But who knows? Maybe she just gets voted out with the idol, and we'll be like, well,
and that's it.
That's it. That's the problem. That's why Survivor's so much fun, because there's so many different possibilities with just Heidi having an idol.
Yeah, we the great thing about Survivor is that you can have one episode where you think someone is going some way, like they're going in a super positive way, and the next episode they're gone. Like they're 100% gone. Look at Mike. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
Look at Mike in 42. The very first episode, positive. He's a really great guy. He is good at bonding on his tribe. He's, all of that. Next episode, over the top. He's awful. He's an idiot. Like, that's the great thing about Survivor. And it's a puzzle. With every single contestant, it's a puzzle. And you have to put together all of the pieces to figure out how the puzzle works. And so every single edit clue, every single clue that they give you on the show, treat it as something important. Because it could either be important to note it as a throwaway or important because that's their theme of the season.
Exactly. Anything else about Heidi?
I don't think so. I think Heidi, I think we, I'm interested to see if your point is correct.
Maybe. I kind of want it to happen just because I've been saying Carson's not winning the game since episode 1. And it'd be interesting to have me be right.
I think I'd be really interested to see that. I might call it a crackpot theory from you. Will and his crackpot theories.
My crackpot theories keep this podcast afloat, Jack.
I like that theory. That's a good theory. We should stick to that. All right. We're going to go through these next two quick because I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
And it makes me sad.
It does make me sad. It makes me sad, especially about Jamie, because again, we're not going to reiterate most of the same points. She's a great person, positive presence, all of that. I didn't actually. I think I must have either blanked out or I didn't catch it at first. But Jamie handing her idol to Kane, her fake idol, sorry, and then Lauren giving her extra vote to Jamie, to which she then used. To which then Kane voted Danny, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But,
Heidi.
Yeah. But Jamie, I think it's night and day. I think it's clear what her edit is. It's she gave her idol to Kane. Kane went out the door with it. Jamie still believes that idol was real and is going to go look for another one. She has been misled. Yep. She's not going to do it. She's not going to figure it out for herself. She's been misled by someone who is playing a smarter game than her. And Jamie's entire story about this idol is all based on the fantastic gameplay of Matthew. Because Matthew literally just completely duped Jamie, and Jamie has believed him to the heavens. Jamie has absolutely believed his word is the gospel.
Yep.
So I think with Jamie, it's just the idea of being misled. And I think, she literally in the sneak peek for next episode, Carson literally just misleads her like that. So I think that's it.
See, I just don't know why the editors dislike Jamie so much, because everyone laughed at her with the whole fake idol thing, and then it doesn't even play out. There's no payoff. There's no Jamie trying to play the idol or Kane trying to he just went home without the idol. But I think, do you know what the payoff could be? Final tribal council. She gets up and she's like, I had this idol, and then it went with Kane, and then Kane just looks at her like, it was fake. Matthew told me the whole that could be the payoff the producers want.
That would be gold. I love Jamie, but that would be gold.
Island of the Idols.
I love Jamie, but that would be gold. That would be Survivor gold. That would be an all-time moment for sure.
In Island of the Idols.
Exactly. But nothing much to say about Jamie. She won't win. She's great. Aww. And she's been misled. Poor Jamie. And I feel the same about the next person, Lauren. Not so much being misled, but I don't really know. I just think she just lost her extra vote. We still have that idea of, okay, Lauren has this extra vote. She's going to want to do something with it. So maybe she tries to make this big move, because she said in the premiere she's a big player. She wants to do something big. And she just lost her 100% ticket to make that big move, to make that big call. Where does Lauren go from here?
And who knows? And I feel so bad because I feel like she got so under-edited that I feel like a lot of casual fans are like, they're just looking at her now like, who's Lauren? And she seems like she's playing a decent game, a good head on her shoulders. And it just sucks seeing her just as the de facto, she's not winning the game kind of player. Feel bad.
Yeah,
because there's nothing much to really say that we haven't said before.
Right. I mean, it's easy as you're right. She's been under-edited. We haven't seen Lauren. I feel like if we saw a lot more of Lauren this season, she would have absolutely been a contender, because she does seem like a pretty solid player. But we just don't see it. And I think long time ago it was Cell, and now it's just like you see it pop up in your feed, just delete the notification and move on.
Yep.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah. Last up is obvious. The Jam. The train. It's tough because I think a lot of people, if they had Carolyn in their top contenders, and even if they didn't, I think a lot of people, if they took an objective look at this episode, would look at Carolyn versus Jam Jam and go, Carolyn had the better edit. Carolyn won. She should be the number one contender. I don't have Carolyn as the number one contender because of one simple fact that has been introduced to us and I think is going to be now the theme of his game. If you vote me, you are gone. Every person who has voted for Jam Jam has been gone. And I think the key with that philosophy for this episode is that Jam Jam wanted Kane. That was made clear. That was made clear to Carson, who went home. Kane. Jam Jam still has that control in the game, and I think that is really, really, really interesting to see. Because again, objectively, Carolyn had a great episode, but if you look at the tiny little things and you look at Jam Jam's kind of strength overall, you're gonna realize, yeah, I think Jam Jam just edges out over Carolyn just by a little bit, not much.
Yeah, I think we're gearing into a Jam Jam versus Carolyn finale. I think, I don't know if I said this on air or before, we're going to see one make Final Four and one win the game. And it could be a fire-making thing, but I think they're just too big of characters. And everyone either has Jam Jam or Carolyn number one.
Right.
And I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Yeah.
And it makes me happy because Jam Jam as a character has been my favorite, probably my favorite in the modern era. I love Cody from I loved Cody from last season. I liked Mike and High from 42, but like Jam Jam is just so like just naturally funny that I'd say it's either him or Cody as my favorite from modern. And I'll include Brad from 41. I love Brad. Broccoli Tree Brad. But yeah. I mean, but the thing is, I feel like with Carolyn, we had more things to say about Carolyn. I feel like she made a lot of improvements. Even though she was always number two for me, but I feel like Jam Jam is just still consistent. Like he's still the number one, which might mean something for Carolyn if her storyline is, no one listens to me, because I feel like she's singing a very similar tune to Heidi. Now Heidi was in episode 1, not season 1. Jesus, where Heidi's like, don't underestimate me. Yeah, Heidi
back in Borneo. Heidi, man,
there with Richard Hatch.
Heidi was better than Richard Hatch in season 1.
It was the deleted scene right after Richard Hatch talked about how he was the winner. Heidi's like, I'm winning 43 seasons from now. Be ready.
Oh my god, dude.
For Heidi.
Yeah, I think what we've seen with this new era kind of trend, say for Erica, because Erica was not really much of a character, we've seen these real characters, more characters than players win the game. Erica, player, she was a character, but she was way more a player. Marianne, character, to the T. Gabler, not as much, but still definitely, I think, more character than player. Jam Jam, Carolyn, characters, more than players. We're seeing these real, more character players win the game and actually have strong games to win the game. And I think that's really, really fascinating because with Survivor in the past, a lot of winners have either been players or characters. We've seen Fabio from 21, total character.
Favorite winner of all time.
That is a nuts opinion.
The greatest player.
But a character, right? Definitely a character, for sure. Kim from 24, player.
Brian Heidi, player.
Brian Heidi, player. Absolutely. Sandra, you can argue player, but I do think she's more of a character. For sure.
Look, I love Sandra, I don't think she's overrated, but I think people treat her gameplay as like this something revolutionary. Maybe it was a little bit. Maybe she kind of broke away from the alliance thing, but I feel like we remember Sandra for being a character similar to this. Might be a weird one, but Tina from season 2. I feel like we remember her as a character, and while she had a lot of good gameplay, I felt like that season was one of the why blank lost and not why blank won.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, again, this really interesting mix of, obviously it's the new era winners have definitely been more character than player, but I really think what they're trying to push, and I think what is really good, is they're really trying to mix together the two to create a unique and dynamic winner. And I think Jam Jam and Carolyn especially fit that bill. And I think if next episode nothing really changes for Heidi, or it gets bad for Heidi or Franny, like whatever, it's Jam Jam or Carolyn. And I think it's bottom line, one of those two. And now it's just a matter of figuring out who's going to do it. So,
Yep.
All right. Well, now it's time to get into the Edgic. We're going to go all the way back to the Edgic. Yeah, I mean, taking a kind of overall look at this, Carolyn, on paper, the best episode out of everybody. Really, really strong, positive, great content, great, really great strategy and talk about her game as a whole. Franny had a positive edit as well. I think the two things I want to kind of point out here with my edge, three, we'll make it three. Carson is, you, again, copy paste that into a season from the 30s and Carson wins the game.
Yep.
Copy paste that strip, middle of the road positive to CP from the latest episode. You copy that strip in with 30s season, he wins the game. Or even a 20s season, maybe. But with this, with the new era, it just doesn't work. And I think we're starting to really see that play out. Danny, I think a lot of people are interested in episode 7. And I think I've actually gotten a comment about it from somebody. Why is Danny negative in episode 7? Because I saw that negativity kind of come out and be put on him. And now I think it's way more appropriate to put that negativity on him. And it kind of reinforces the idea that he's becoming a little too, maybe a little too volatile is the word. Just a little hot. Just a little hot. And then number 3 is Heidi. You'd think that if Heidi had this great idol episode and Heidi was really talking about her game in the now, it would be a CP, a complex personality. I think it's middle of the road because she does not talk about what she really wants for the future, and I think it's going to get more middle of the road unless we see a change.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe next episode she's CP positive, or over the top positive.
For sure.
But I agree with that assessment where if we saw her have more drive of like, here's what I want to do, or here's what I like. Did Heidi talk about like what she wanted to happen?
Yeah, I think she talked about what she wanted. I think she wanted either Jamie or Kane to go. I believe she just wanted one of the Raw 2s to go. But again, it's in the now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. All right. Now is the ultimate part, the most important part of StockWatch, where we are going to stock rate everybody left in the game. We will go alphabetically again, and I'll flip to the sides again. We're going to start with Carolyn. Will, what do you think? Buy, stay, or sell?
I mean, if you haven't bought Carolyn stock at all this season, what have you been doing? Have you been watching season 44? Absolutely buy. Don't overbuy. If you have enough Carolyn stock, I would stay. But I would still consider buying just a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a little buy. It's a small buy right now. I think, you should, if you haven't bought it, you should have bought it earlier. I think if it starts to go down a little bit, it's a sell, but really you want Carolyn stock right now. It's a great time to have it for sure. Carson.
Sell.
Get rid of it.
last episode, like if you were buying Carson stock last episode, then what have you been watching season 44?
Right.
Because I've said, it's looking good now until there's a decline. And today was the Carson decline. And I don't see it getting better from here. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think again the time to buy with Carson was early in the game, and I still think as the episodes went on, it'd be like, hey, maybe continue to buy. Now it's sell, and I think with the past episode or two, I think it's definitely all right. Time to get rid of that stock because we're starting to see hints of a downward trend.
Yep.
Danny,
At what point did you buy Danny stock? I'd sell here. Again, I think him or Carson is going this next episode. Maybe Lauren, but most likely Danny or Carson. And so yeah, I think now's a good time to sell if you still have any Danny stock.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a Danny sale now. I do think this is probably the highest he's really ever going to be, unless one of the top 5 gets eliminated. I think this is really the highest he's ever going to be. So I think now is the time to sell when it's at its peak.
Mm-hmm.
Franny,
I'd stay
as well. A lot of people would probably say buy. A lot of people probably say buy because she's been really developing these past few episodes. I say stay as well because I think she's been doing really good. I just don't think she breaks into that top 2 of Jam Jam and Carolyn now.
Yep.
And I think she stays right at that 3 and 4. So I don't say sell just yet because I do think we still see a little more Franny, but I think get ready to sell.
Yeah. Depending on how this next episode is. I don't think Franny's going this upcoming episode. She might. I doubt it. Especially if Heidi has the idol.
But Heidi.
I'd stay. I don't want to buy. I don't want to sell. I would stay. She has.
I don't think Heidi.
Right. But I don't think she would. I think next episode would be a start of decline, unless she uses that idol to get out like Carson.
Right. I think honestly, she's only going to move up incrementally if she moves up anymore. Yeah. Which would really result in not really a reason to go for a buy. So if you have Heidi stock, stay. Otherwise, I'd get ready for a sell as well because Heidi could start to not drop too much. I don't think she'll drop too much at all, but she may drop a little bit. So just be ready to sell some of that stock going into these final episodes. Jamie, do you have Jamie stock?
If you've bought Jamie stock at all, have you been watching season 44?
That's a pretty good theme of StockWatch. If
you've seen the season, you should know.
You should probably know.
Yeah.
Again,
I feel bad for laughing about this because Jamie and we're going to say the same thing about Lauren. Cool people. I want to like them. I want them to do good. But that's just the beauty of Survivor. Not everyone's a winner.
Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. If you have it, if you don't have it, good on you. You got rid of it a while ago.
Take your loss.
Take your loss. Take your loss. Head to bed. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Lauren.
Same story.
Same thing.
Same exact story.
Exact same thing. Just if you have it, get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Jam Jam. The same exact story as Carolyn. No.
I'd buy one more. I don't think.
I'd buy one more.
One more stock. We know how.
Just a little bit. Buy one more because honestly, I think the selling point for Jam Jam is right at the end of the game. Right when you get to the end, you sell that stock because
he's guaranteed to win.
Unless he's guaranteed 100% he's going to win the game, I think right at the end you sell that stock. But there's no reason not to buy Jam Jam now. It's just a really high price to buy Jam Jam right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's it.
All right. That is it. Will, do you have any more thoughts from this episode, the stocks?
So,
what's on your mind personally?
Well, my physics exam at 8:30 is on my mind personally. I will say that I've been very vocal on liking modern Survivor. I don't think it's as good as, the Golden Age. My favorite seasons of Survivor, they were, 10, 15 years ago, or 10 years ago. But I've been really liking modern Survivor. I think a lot of episodes suck, right? Every season has one terrible episode.
Absolutely.
But each season also has like one of the best Survivor episodes ever, right? Like, look me dead in the eye and tell me that the Shan boot from season 41 was anything short of gold. Or same thing with, half of season 42. Or the Cody boot from 43. And I feel like we haven't had that golden, like, amazing episode. I know people like talk about Matthew's exit. But I feel like we're gearing up for one of those golden episodes that we see every season. It normally happens around this point too, and so I'm really excited.
We've been building a really good trajectory these past 2 episodes, and I think you're right. There's every new era season. There's that one episode that's just bam. That's the episode. That is the best episode of the season. One of the best in a while, and it's been building on that. And I think we're 100% geared for that episode really soon, because it's only this episode. It's only 4 episodes left. It's only this coming one, next finale, right? So these next 3, one of them is going to be the golden episode, and I think y'all should definitely be ready for that, because golden episode definitely does mean maybe a little bit of change in the stocks.
It's maybe the Carson goes in the golden episode.
Maybe he does. Maybe he does. All right, Will. Any final words?
Follow Official Saving Bruce. We're playing a show July 14th. Be there, be square.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this has been Jack and Will with the stocks. Will, I want to thank you for the time. Thank you all for watching the podcast, and we will see you all next week.
Yeehaw.
Have a good night.